Awesome. So as everyone's still kind of introducing themselves, we will go ahead and kick this off just to be mindful of everybody's time. Might be a few stragglers, and that's okay. If at any point you got to jet or take off, this is being recorded, and we will send you both the presentation as well as Molly's slides, because there's a few opportunities that you'll be able to click on links and do different things like that. So just know you're going to get all of that different information sent out to you after today's presentation. So as well as Molly's contact info, if you have questions or you want to reach out to her, we're more than happy to connect along the way. We did run a similar presentation last week, and it was about a 30 to 35-minute presentation for anybody that's just kind of wondering about the time domain, and then we'll open it up to questions and things like that. If you do have questions along the way, either for myself or for Molly, please go ahead and put those in the chat that people are chirping in on right now, or the Q&A button are both great options. So we'll kick this off. My name is Doug Curtin. I work here at Platform as the Director of Content and have a great relationship with Molly, who has done all sorts of different articles that you guys might have seen via the emails that we've sent out over the past few days, as well as a lot of different ways that we've worked together. So Molly, thank you so much for doing another webinar with us. This is exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So we will go ahead and get started. We'll kind of lay out what to expect of this presentation. If you have questions along the way, we're certainly happy to answer them as we go. But Molly, I'll let you introduce yourself and we'll kick this off.
Okay, perfect. Well, hi everyone. Thanks so much for joining. It's a beautiful day outside, at least in Michigan. So for you guys to be chilling on a webinar, I appreciate it. First off, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. We're going to then talk about my teaching philosophy. I go by something called P3. So I use 3 key words to really facilitate not only my life philosophy, but my teaching and coaching philosophy. We'll talk about how Platform and I met, and then how I implement technology into my everyday classroom. So a little bit more about myself. Up on the screen, you'll see my wonderful family, and you might see some pictures if you have really good eyesight in the background here. But I am a daughter of a teacher. So my mom retired about 7 years ago now, and she had over 33 years of teaching at my local high school. And my dad was a retired police officer. So my mom was really the person who got me into teaching and absolutely loving what I do. So I have a great mentor, not only for life, but within my career, within my mom. So you might see a picture of a dog a couple times, and he's actually over to the side of me right now. That's my dog, Brody. He's also a certified therapy dog. He was trained strictly for the school. So he hasn't been working for 3 months, but we've still been doing training daily. So that's, well, if you hear a bark, I apologize. But I've been teaching now for 7 years. I had 1 year at a district called Hamilton. That was on the west side of Michigan. And I've been at Penfield High School for 6 years now. So just completed year 6. I teach all of the fitness and strength and conditioning classes at Penfield. And then I have done traditional PE. So if at any time you guys have questions on how to implement this into a traditional PE classroom, not just the weight room or fitness, I'm more than happy to answer anything with that. I also coach varsity softball. Bit of a curveball this year with the coronavirus coming through as to how to go about my season. We did have a virtual softball season though, so that was fun. And I went to Hope College. So if you see the Hope banners behind me, I am a Dutchman through and through. So
awesome. And a good introduction of Molly. She did some creative things for her softball season, going virtual and making it all happen. But we are going to spend some more time on the PE side today. If you have questions about that, you can certainly reach out to her as well. She's got tons of different good ideas. So Molly, you mentioned it. It's on your shirt right now in terms of P3 fitness. Talk us through this quote, how it applied to kind of as we went into this kind of COVID style learning and having to go remote, and also just how it kind of shapes your broader philosophy around teaching.
Yeah, so this was a quote that I actually had written up for my softball girls. You know, it was a turn of events and uncharted waters that all of us have been through in the last 3 months. And, you know, everything has a purpose. You know, I am a firm believer in that. Things may change, but it doesn't mean your passion has to. So stay strong with it and fight with your pride. So purpose, passion, and pride are those 3 words that I go by in my philosophy. Purpose means that everyone has a purpose. And I would love to challenge people to find that purpose by creating different experiences for them, putting them in different challenges, things like that. So everyone has a purpose, and I just want to help them find that. Passion, it's the confidence and love that you have for yourself. I think once you have that confidence and love in yourself, it really goes into and dives deeper into everything that you do. So I really want my students to come away when they graduate from high school and be like, you know what, like, I'm me and I love myself. And then the pride is that inner lion, I guess you could say, wanting to get better every single day, the be better mentality, and just really going after it with ways of challenging, supporting, building knowledge, challenging and loving one another's is a time that we could really use right now as well. So purpose, passion, and pride. Those are my 3 words. And I think having something like that and being able to brand it. So as you can see, like I'm wearing this shirt right now. I give out P3 Fitness shirts as awards to my students at the end of the year. It's something that they look forward to having. And it's just that little bit of pride symbol that they can wear around town or wear in the classroom. So, sorry.
And I was going to just ask you to elaborate a little bit more, which is perfect, Molly. It's something that it's not just something you're walking around with your own head or, you know, you will present on a webinar or anything else like that. It's something that all of your different students know as they come into your classroom, right? As you introduce to them, you want them to kind of ingrain these 3 words in their own head and start to figure out almost their own identity within it.
Yes, 100%, because I think I'll kind of get in terms of on the branding of like branding my physical education classroom, but also too, like phys ed and health are something that you're going to have for a lifetime. And if you can like get those 3 words ingrained into your student's head, like it goes way further than the 4 walls of the school that you're in. And that's the most important thing that us as teachers are trying to do is like, what's the connection that we can make to the real world to help them be successful? So with me and deciding to brand my classroom was simply that. Like, I want to be able to be like, oh, you know, P3, and a student who may not have had me before or has had me will be able to recite those words and tell me their story about it. And that's the biggest thing, whether they see something on social media of a word that I posted from P3 or a video or anything like that, they're like, oh yeah, that's Collins. You know, that's Collins's classroom. Like, I want there to be a connection with my class and the real world.
Awesome. And I think that's a really important point that a lot of teachers have taken away when they talk with you or they see the stuff that you put out, is that the students have kind of a connection between what are we doing in physical education and how does it apply. And you, I think, really hit the nail on the head, is that a lot of times, especially right now, we have so much of that like social and emotional and all of those other things kind of underneath the surface of physical education. There's those opportunities to do it. It might not be like richly embedded within the curriculum, but by using these 3 words, you're kind of sorting and setting them up for those types of things, especially as we hit all of these challenges that are popping up all across the country, to be able to kind of hold that identity a little bit.
Yeah, you're basically setting yourself up for those tough conversations that make everyone better. You know, Absolutely. Like being able to sit down with a kid and figure out a little bit more of their background story so that you can connect with them better. Mm-hmm. That with this purpose, passion, pride kind of laid out, you know, day one, they're going to be like, okay, well, I guess it might come that she might come to me one-on-one and have these conversations. So you're just helping to prepare your students for what's to come in the future as well.
Absolutely.
And then I talked about, sorry, go ahead.
And you have a lot of students, right? And, you know, you're working with all of these different classes. That can be the challenge, but having kind of that baseline conversation understanding so that they know who you are and how you're coming to them, because you can't always build that personal relationship with everybody. But by setting up those 3 Ps, you've kind of set up that foundation in which they know how you're coming and kind of broaching those conversations, which I think is a good segue into kind of your philosophy, your how and why, if you want to spend a little bit of time talking about that before we get into the classes themselves.
Yeah, for sure. So my why is simply, I want to be able to make a difference as mentors, coaches, teachers all like have made in my life. You know, I'm sure you guys can sit there and think about, you know, your favorite teacher that you had in school, or one of the best coaches that you had, or someone who you view as either a peer mentor, career mentor, whatever it may be, and you've learned lessons from those individuals. That's what I am striving to do with my students every day. So I want to be able to give back what those people who came before me did for me. And then my how is I expect greatness, and you have to use greatness, but not perfection. And a lot of times people get that mixed up. They view perfection and greatness in the same category, and they're not. Someone's greatest they can give you on one day might not be the same a week from now, a day from now, whatever it may be, due to circumstances that happen in our lives. But every single day, I want them to give the best that they can to be great. And hopefully instilling in them that, like, hey, she's going to be tough on you. She's going to give you some tough love. But at the end of the day, when you walk out of her classroom, she's going to be, hey, love you. Have a great day.
Sure.
And that's that bigger picture emotion of, like, we can go through our, you know, little arguments, disagreements in the classroom, but when you leave, I'm still going to love you. I'm going to hopefully give them a high five or a hug or whatever it may be. You never know.
An air high five, possibly.
Yeah, I really am striving to have them get that perfection mode out of their head and just being great and being better each day.
Absolutely. And I'll leave this quote up here before we transition into kind of talking about what exactly and who exactly you're working with. As I do kind of keep this quote up, and I preface as you get into your classes, Molly, obviously each state has different requirements for physical education, who's allowed to and who's supposed to do what. So, you know, the class load that Molly's about to touch on and kind of talk about right now is going to be geared towards, you know, what Michigan, where Molly's located, is sort of expecting of her. Obviously, you can kind of apply the different takeaways and little tips and tricks that Molly has within your own structure, because it's going to be different state from state. But go ahead, Molly, and kind of explain these three classes that you had in your previous year caseload, sort of with the idea and understanding that both women's fitness and foundations of weight training kind of feed into that strength and conditioning class itself.
Yes, 100%. So women's fitness is probably one of my, you know, pride and joys. I created this class probably now 4 or 5 years ago. And it was designed because we were noticing in our PE classes, we just weren't getting the females to sign up that, especially me as a female educator, would have liked. And we talked about and brainstormed, you know, what would make it so that we were getting more females into our classes, and then hopefully not just staying in women's fitness, but branching out into the other phys ed classes throughout their high school career. So we developed women's fitness. Obviously, it's only women in there, and a lot of schools won't be able to have that opportunity. But just being able to provide them with different things that females would typically enjoy, such as dance, yoga, Pilates, to kind of really create that foundation and get them bought in. That's the biggest thing, is getting them bought into the system of wanting to get into that physical activity, the fitness, the mental health, so that either when they graduate from high school, they feel comfortable going to a Y Center, a Planet Fitness, a boot camp, CrossFit box, anything like that, to continue their fitness journey. And that's kind of the big picture. And like I said, it feeds into, as you said there, Doug, into the strength and conditioning and other classes. And foundations of weight training is very similar. That's where we're mastering the mechanics, breaking things down, focusing on the form, so that students feel comfortable with the movements, and we can then advance the movements in strength and conditioning. So women's fitness and foundations of weight training are feeder classes for strength and conditioning. So strength and conditioning is usually an upper level class, so juniors and seniors. A lot of athletes are in those classes, but you'll see later on that I have many people who were not athletes whatsoever, but they found a love for it once they took a women's fitness or a foundations of weight training. And we're like, you know what, like, I want to try this more. So you're creating performance for life, not just performance for a sport.
Awesome. A quick question from Tyson. At what point of the day do you have your class for female? I know girls don't always like having class in the middle of the day due to getting ready for the next class and other things like that. How do you structure those type of things, trying to make sure that people are kind of comfortable moving from class to class?
And I think you said his name was it Titus?
Tyson.
Tyson. Tyson, if it's just women that don't want to take your class in the middle of the day, I'm shocked, because the number one reason I get for students not wanting to take PE is they don't want to get sweaty throughout the school day. So kudos to you if it's only females during the middle of the day, but I'm guessing it's probably not too. But I've had women's fitness. They usually do one at the beginning of the day, so like a first, second hour class, and then one at the end of the day. Honestly, usually right fourth hour, right in the middle. And then I have a strength and conditioning usually in the morning, and then one in the afternoon. Our schedule is very interesting. We have a lot of dual enrollment students from the local community college, as well as a career center. So we really have to focus on trying to give electives on both halves of the day, so that as many students can take those electives as possible.
Awesome. Thanks for the question, Tyson. A good one at that. If other people have questions, please feel free to chime in the chat.
Or any advice as to how to get
yeah, or any thoughts on navigating. Exactly. So obviously a lot of those classes, both women's fitness, intro to and foundations of strength and conditioning, into strength and conditioning, are kind of geared towards setting students, like you said, up for long-term success, Molly, making sure that when they leave high school, they have the tools in the toolkit to walk away feeling comfortable and confident to go exercise, to go work out at a gym or on their own or whatever it may be. There are some other non-fitness strength and conditioning classes offered at Molly's school. Like she said, she's taught some of those in the past and can touch on them. And we won't spend time talking about those. But what we will spend a little bit of time, Molly, if you want to kind of talk about how I mentioned at the beginning, we came to get connected, not only as you and I platform in P3 Fitness, but also platform kind of the strength and conditioning program that you're using, within your class. If you want to talk a little bit about that, and then we'll jump into what a day looks like with some of those kind of examples and class structures.
Yeah, so I actually had a platform reach out to me, which was really cool because of my social media presence. And we'll talk a little bit more about that towards the end, about what social media can do for your classroom and for your students in general. But they reached out to me. They really liked how my classroom kind of was featured on my social media and what we did and what I focused on. And that being students getting better each day, whether it was the little smallest detail or, a big broader team aspect. And I say team because I consider all my classes a team. So I have my first hour team, I have my second hour team, things like that, just to get them more bought in to competing with each other throughout the day. So we met that way. And then I just really fell in love with their philosophy and P3 Fitness's philosophy together. And overall, that goal being fit for life. We want students to graduate from high school to have a foundation that is solid, so that they're achieving and wanting to achieve that health and fitness journey throughout their life, not just end it and not really know what to do after high school. So that's kind of where it branches together. And we can go off more on those if you guys have questions on them. But
perfect. And I think that leads to a good segue of, there are going to be some questions, and I already see a few in terms of kind of structuring your class. And we're going to do our best to sort of talk about what that looks like, both if you have your students in class coming this fall, or if you're having to go remote or anything else like that. So Molly, do you want to talk about these three buckets, and then we'll dive into them a little bit more in detail?
Yeah, and I'll address too, because I'm seeing a couple questions pop up of like how big my class sizes are. So I'm a Class B school, so a pretty large school, but roughly our classes are in the high 30s. I occasionally will get a low 20s scenario, but we are for 2 rooms I'm able to use at the same time. What I am following the curriculum that the state has given me, as that's so important. The goals and that I have for not only the unit and the curriculum at that particular time, but I'm looking at a broader, bigger goal that I've already talked about numerous times, and that being the Fit for Life. So I'm lesson planning to get that set, and I'm making it aware to my students as to what we're doing. So they're not using fun, and they're going to have to meet goals, but you can do it in a creative way, which is my favorite way to do it. So, and then the feedback from students. So this is really important, just as we would have our feedback from our administrators in terms of how we're teaching. But I want the feedback from the students, because they're the ones that count. They're the ones that matter, whether or not they like that lesson. Oh, how can I tweak it? Whatever it may be. So actually all three of these, the fast forward, play, and stop, those are all linked. So when you guys get the presentation, you can get directly linked to a couple of things.
Awesome.
So the first one, or do you want to?
No, that's perfect. There's a few questions about women's fitness and yoga that I missed and we'll come back to. I think I'll bring those back at the end. You kind of froze for 1 second when you were talking about following goals and class activities, but we are going to dive into each one in a little bit of detail. So just to set the stage for you, Molly, if you want to explain what we're looking at here on the left-hand side, and then kind of talk about how kids could interact with it either in a classroom or at home, I think would probably be a good way of talking about this, and then we'll keep on going if that sounds good.
Yep, so on the left side is a traditional workout. So this is taken right from Platform on their remote fitness, something that they created over this COVID time. So this is something that the students would receive if there was a printout, or say you write it on the whiteboard, and it goes from a warm-up directly correlated to what their movements are going to be for that day into their solid meat of the workout, and then every workout from Platform is going to finish with a finisher. This is going to get them their strength and cardio endurance at the same time, which is something that I've really loved, especially for those of you who have limited time with your students. I know for me, it's really hard, once you get them changed, you get all your announcements done and things like that, and how much time do they really have then to actually work out. And I can give tips and tricks on what I do to also kind of broaden my time. But having them have a set thing throughout the workout that they can look forward to, or that we can just kind of dive into after the warm up, so that they are getting a solid workout in, whether it's, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever it may be. I know that they're leaving my classroom with a good workout. On the right side, you're going to see stills of videos that Platform gives you. With every single workout has individualized exercises with written descriptions and videos right along with it. So say I'm working with a student and Johnny has a question on the right, but I'm not able to answer it right at that second. He can look down on his device, watch a video, and that might answer his question right away. And then once I get done with the student that I was working with, I can run over to Johnny and be like, hey, did you have your question answered? He can either say yes or no. I can watch what he's doing, critique it, move on to the next student. So it really allows for the students to move at a more individualized pace, which I really like. And it gives them times where I can work with them with maybe a lower level student who isn't familiar much with the fitness and the makeup of what's going on, the movements with their body. And my advanced athletes can go on and work at their own pace, kind of move ahead that way. So it really works so that we can meet on the same level playing field.
Awesome. And I think that's kind of bridging into what you brought some technology in your classroom. Kids can use those on their phones, on Chromebooks. You have Chromebooks, and if you're one-to-one, there's a number of different options there. This is a workout that you don't need any equipment, obviously, because we're talking remote, but you've had classes like you talked about in more advanced strength and conditioning where you have barbells, dumbbells, and things like that as well. You made mention to the finishers and things that you kind of liked in there, which brings kind of to this next activity, a little fun finisher. You also are going to get into a little bit more detail about how you've kind of promoted that social media like you just talked about, but what you've done a good job of is kind of showing off what's going on in your classroom, letting other teachers see, community members, administrators know what's going on. Oops. So let's see if I can get this played. And you can kind of talk through this as it plays if that sounds good, Molly.
Yep. So this particular one, this was an individualized AMRAP, so as many reps as possible workout. But what I decided to do at the end of their workout was make it a team workout. So I split their whole class into teams of 3, and we competed. And that's just another variation that all these workouts gives you. You can either continue to stay as an individual, or we can create it into a team workout and really push them. And I love to film them. They love to see themselves on film. They're always asking, like, why am I not on social media, you know? So really trying to space out all the classes so everyone gets on. But this just allows so that they can see it. It holds them accountable. So if I start filming, I'm like, dude, are you gonna start doing something, or what's going on? So it holds them accountable. Their parents love seeing it when they can see what their students actually doing in class. That helps not only their case, but also to your case when, say, it comes to parent-teacher conferences and be like, what have they been doing? Instead of telling them, you can show them now. And then it helps me with my admin and other community members that they're seeing what Penfield's doing on a daily basis. So.
Awesome. So that's an example of one of those finishers like you're talking about, where you kind of adapted it and kind of tweaked it to what you enjoy as a teacher. You could kind of make those modifications to fit your space. Don't even have to be in a weight room. Like you're in this little, is that a wrestling room?
It's a wrestling room. Yep. So it's actually right next door to our weight room, which works out perfectly. So I can have my class kind of split into which, so I know not many people are that fortunate. So.
Awesome. All right. So as you mentioned, this is going to be shared with everyone. These are 3 different kind of testimonials from students that have participated in your different classes and everything else like that. You kind of mentioned you structure it with curriculum. You have, your class activities, but what you said a big part of it is your kind of review from your students themselves. Do you want to talk over that a little bit first, and then maybe we can highlight one of the videos if that sounds good?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, your subject area is obviously important. That there's no question about it. But we have to look at the bigger picture when we're educators and really looking to think about what do these students need at this particular time. And if anything, if COVID has taught us anything at this 3-month period that we've had, and now the more recent, racial and social aspects that are going on, like these students need to know how to be able to communicate with people. They need to be able to self-love and know how to care for themselves so that they can show love and show care for other people. And that's the underlining meaning to my classes. We want to create the best you so that you can give the best self to someone else. And these 3 students are phenomenal. A little side note, KO there, Kaylee Overby on the left side, she just got pranked by me yesterday. I saran wrapped the crap out of her car. I do it every year to one senior, and she got it. So these are phenomenal people. I think we're going to watch a little bit of Kayla's, hopefully. Sure. Kayla is in the Navy currently, and she is a student that came to me her senior year, has never taken a phys ed class before. She sat down, asked to have a meeting with me, and she goes, I want to go into the Navy, but I can't do a push-up. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay. I go, what year are you? She goes, a senior. And I'm like, whew, all right, let's go. So this is a little bit of Kayla's story of what she learned in my class.
Sure. All right. And I'm hooked up to a TV. So Molly, let me know if it actually comes through. But
okay.
Hi, I'm Kayla Steen. I took Ms. Collins' strength and conditioning class in 2017, my senior year. I walked in nervous, timid, hadn't really been around a gym much less lifting equipment. And not only did I learn proper execution of lifts, I learned patience, mindfulness, determination, and how to celebrate the minor successes, and not everything has to be so serious. So we learned a lot of life lessons in her class, and also how to have fun and just relax. Learned how to celebrate minor and major accomplishments and growth as well. I mean, I still use the lessons that I learned in her class today and also implement them in my fitness programs that I teach to my other sailors when I run fitness sessions. So I've learned so much more in her class than I feel like I did in the previous 3 years.
Awesome. So I just cut it off. Molly, there's a few questions that I think you can answer quickly just in terms of like permission required from social media or anything else like that. Do you guys have the kids sign like a release form, or how do you kind of navigate that within your school?
Yeah, so at the beginning of the year, each student takes home numerous packets, but within there, they have a social media release form. If we have a student that has asked us not to have them on social media, we get that information, and then I just make sure that I don't require that student in any videos or things like that. And luckily, I haven't had any students yet in 6 years, so
Nice.
that's been really nice.
Awesome. Awesome. And in the essence of time, just like we were talking about, shooting for around 30 to 35 minutes, we have two more kind of major slides we're going to touch on. There's a lot of questions that kind of circulate around accountability and just making sure that, you know, you hold your kids accountable, whether they are working out in your classroom, they're working out at home. Talk to us a little bit about this accountability. Kind of, I asked you to put together one more slide here to think about those things. Talk us through that, and then we'll get to social media and wrap up with any other questions that people might have.
Yeah, this is a good one. So if you're someone who is new, or you knew someone who watched this last time, tell them to take a look at this one, because we did get a lot of questions. So during this time of COVID, and we're trying to do PE online, and maybe the possibility of us doing it online next semester and next school year as well, the question is accountability. How are we going to make sure our students are doing the work that we want them to do? First and foremost, you have to create that trust and connection with them, just as you would in the classroom, no matter what, because if you don't, they're not going to want to do anything for you. It's just like anything, you know, you're not going to want to do something for a boss who hasn't showed any interest in you. So you have to have that trust and connection with them before anything else happens. Secondly are the videos and pictures. So maybe you make an assignment and you want to see something that they did something that day. Maybe have them take a video of them doing a push-up, you know, them doing a squat, something simple that's not too intense, that you can then either critique them, you can highlight them on social media, something like that. Maybe it's a picture of them going for a walk with their dog, you know, anything to show that they are being outside, physically active, with their family, something like that, to hold them accountable. Keep it simple and quick. Teenagers think that their time is everything. So you're gonna have to have something that's simple, quick, to the point, and that they know why they're doing it. And I'll kind of skip down to number 6 there. Make your purpose known. So if you're doing something for a particular reason, let them know so that they know the why as to why they're doing this assignment. I'm in grad school right now, and nothing gets me more frustrated when I just feel like I'm doing busy work. And I know that's part of the scenario, but same thing goes with all these students. There's so many things that they got going on, and I think sometimes we overload them with just meaningless things instead of things that, like, hey, this is the reason why we're doing it. It's not going to take you long. Boom, quick, to the point. Make sure it's interactive and competitive. So such as the team AMRAP that I showed you. They're interacting with each other, they're with their group, they're with their team, and they're competing. You can do this individually as well. My softball team did one of those, like, throw the softball to the other person, and we created a video, and each girl catching it and throwing it. You know, that's something that's individualized, but it's creating this interaction with each other. And then we challenged other teams within our school to also do it. So
Right.
There's different things like that. You could do like a push-up challenge, kind of like doing the wave, but within a video. I could give numerous kind of examples if you want them or need them. And then the last one is have a schedule. Your life's going to be so much easier if you create a schedule in terms of exactly what you're going to be doing, just as you would for lesson plans. Just create a schedule, make it visual, so that it holds not only them accountable, but you accountable.
Sure.
And it helps just support that fact of, like, what are we doing today? And you can say it, but then you can also point to it and be like, hey, this is what we're doing. So just helps
Awesome.
to keep everything organized.
Awesome. So a few different questions just about different ways that you can actually facilitate that out or send that out. There are a number of different ways as well that Molly does that with her social media that we're about to touch on, as well as platform that kids can log things or do. We won't spend too much time on that. If you have more specific questions, we'll make some answers available to you as well. So Molly, as we go to wrap up, you've made mention to social media a few times, and I've seen a few questions kind of come across the board. One of them was, what social media platforms are you using to share kind of the students' work, what they're doing? Talk us through what your goals are with the different kind of ways that you're using social media, and then we'll open it up to more questions and wrap up from there.
Yep. So number one for student engagement, my number one is Instagram that I use. And the students also love TikTok. You've probably seen a lot of people, teachers in general, starting to get on TikTok. I haven't gotten on TikTok, but I've seen TikToks. I got drawn into them. And I've been on TikTok. So students have gotten me on TikTok before. But Instagram is the main platform I use to engage students. And I think that's really important, that you have multiple different social medias that engage different people. Facebook, you're going to engage the parents. That's where you're going to get a lot of the parents who want to see what their kids are doing and show off their students. So that's where you're going to find that. YouTube, that's where you're going to be able to reach the broader spectrum and be that advocate for physical education and the advocate for yourself.
Right.
Twitter, I think, is really good for feedback. And if you're on Twitter, you kind of know that. It's a way to reach out, kind of have educational, hopefully educational kind of discussions and comments with each other on how to make something better. It's also a way that students are on there, and you can do a lot of polls and things like that. But I use Twitter as more of an evaluation and feedback tool rather than a tool to necessarily get things out. And then LinkedIn is personally just for me. That's my online resume to advocate for myself and to help kind of reach with other professionals within my field and not in my field, to hopefully then bridge the gap and bring multiple different sectors together.
Sure. Hey, Molly, another question I think touches on this is, especially within the classroom, but also you're interacting with kids on social media, and that might cause a few kind of hairs to stand up and worry about sort of like managing technology properly.
Yep.
How do you kind of navigate that, both in the classroom, making sure that kids stay on task, stay on the app they're supposed to be using, versus fluttering out to different social media? And also, how do you kind of navigate your own kind of personal identity working with these kids on social media and kind of juggling all those different kind of proper tech uses?
So because we are personally a very big technology school, each student has a Chromebook. We talk a lot about digital citizenship. It's something that they've asked us in every single class to do. And I think it's really important because, when I was in college, I honestly didn't have all these social media things. And I didn't when I first got a job, because I was kind of scared out of it. They're like, don't do it. You don't want anything to risk you getting a job and things like that. And I got thinking about it, and I was like, you know what? Like, if I don't think I really do anything to that would affect me not having my job or things like that. And I think that's so important. If I can be positive and have healthy conversations within these social media platforms, I'm leading by example for my students. If I see a student who puts something that's semi-inappropriate, either I can address them right then and there via a DM or something and be like, hey, like maybe we should think about this, and just start a conversation, or we can talk about it at school and have a one-on-one discussion. Sometimes it gets brought into a bigger, like we make it a class discussion and we talk about it. So I think it's a tool to, again, talk about the bigger picture. Like, I've seen numerous students who have done some very silly things on social media, and it's a good way for us to talk about it when I can sit there and also say that I use it and they know that I use it. I think it just makes me a little bit more marketable in them, that Collins probably sees what we're doing all the time. And I think that's really important, and that they know that I interact with them. If they have a poll on their Instagram, I'm going to vote for it. If they have a certain picture that's up, I'm going to like it or I'm not going to like it. And they're also going to know things like that. So it's just a way to interact and keep them accountable on the online basis, because there's there's so many moving parts with social media, and it can be so negative. But if I'm on there, how can I be an example to be that positive benefit?
Awesome. So we're going to kind of wrap up and pause here. That was a great kind of overview of how Molly takes her P3 fitness, and I think kind of guides through everything, as you just kind of summarized right there, Molly, going from if I can take that and apply it when I go into my classroom and how I approach my learning, and then also how they know we should all be acting both as digital citizens and everything else like that. I think that's a great way to put it. For those that are got to take off, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you spending time. We are going to stick around and answer questions. I've seen a bunch more pop up. If you guys are interested, Molly's contact information is right here. She's more than happy to chat with you guys. If you have specific questions about some of the way she runs her classes or how she uses different social media platforms, etc. So please feel free to reach out to Molly. That's not a bluff. She's been responding to people over the last few weeks and chatting and sharing ideas. Much like we know we don't have any of the perfect answers, this is kind of just a starting point to have a conversation around it. So again, if you got to take off, thank you so much for joining us, but I am going to start to kind of weave through some of the other questions that folks have, if that sounds good with you, Molly.
Yeah, I see one right away, if you don't mind me jumping in on one.
Sure, go for it.
The question was, what platform do you use for social learning or distance learning? And my number one is platform itself, at PLT4M. That's where it can be web-based or app-based, and it gives you the most tools possible. They've created not only physical workouts, but they've also created written assignments from their blog posts and podcasts, which talk about numerous different topics that are not only good for us as teachers or coaches, but also good for the students to learn, especially the nutrition ones. And then off of that, we're a Google school, so we use Google a lot. So I use Google Classroom. And a way to communicate with my team is I also use the app Band. And that allows me to share documents a lot easier, chat with students. Parents are also on that app as well. So those are the top 3 ones that I use on a daily basis.
Awesome. Another question from Jordan, is platform only for fitness related activity? You kind of touched on the nutrition and other things as well. Do they have games? Not really, Jordan, but another question just in terms of middle school use. We do see a lot of middle schools using it for like an introduction to fitness. Molly, if you want to touch on that a little bit, I think you probably can chat a little over about how it can be used at the middle school level as well.
Yeah, so there's multiple different programs within platform, and yes, it is primarily fitness. They won't really have games or anything, but there are multiple different levels for intro. And honestly, if your middle school could start doing it, it will benefit your high school physical education program so much, because the terminology, the verbiage, everything is going to be on the same page all the way throughout, and it can just help brand your phys ed department and keep everyone accountable and teaching this the same way overall. There's obviously little tweaks and quirks that everyone has, but how to do things to the nitty gritty is there. Our middle school program does use it. They just started this year. It was new for them. So they didn't get far on it just because of COVID, but they use it over the quarantine time. And I think a lot of them were very grateful for that. So yes, I think it's great for middle school because of the different levels of programs that they have. So they're strictly body weight things, working your way up to then different types of equipment, say medicine balls or PVC pipes, to then moving up to actual weighted equipment of barbells, dumbbells, things like that.
Awesome. A more fun question. Actually, we'll jump to this one next. Someone wants to know if you have a book.
I just saw that. No, but I am actually writing a children's book right now. Seems really weird. I'm writing a children's book about Brody, our therapy dog. So And the plan is actually for one of my former students who, I wish it was in here, I could show you, it's amazing. She painted a picture of Brody, like a life portrait, and it's on the ceiling of our high school right outside here. So, but she's hopefully going to do all the illustration. So that's the only book I have, but you gave me ideas though. Thank you.
Nice. Tyson has another question of an example of a fitness day that students can be engaged with during fitness learning. I'm just going to circle back to this slide. Oops.
Yep.
And kind of walk through what that program looks like, Molly, if you'll let me.
Yep.
Each program has kind of a description, options to scale at home if someone's looking for a little bit more of a challenge, loading up a backpack or things like that. And then from there, they're going to get warmed up, do some dynamic stretching, and then as Molly mentioned earlier, kind of do maybe some supersets, some core movements, warm up the main movements of the day, and then there's a finisher to kind of put it all together. So there's lots of remote fitness program workouts. There's over 30 now, as well as an at-home athletic performance program. So there's different options if you're feeling like, hey, this is great for my PE side, maybe want something a little different for my athletes, et cetera. There's a few different options there as well. So hopefully that answers that question. And if you want to dive more deeply into those, I would recommend reaching out to Molly or checking out Platform a little bit more. No problem.
And they can do that individually right on their app. You'll learn a little bit more. We can set you up with a quick little demo of Platform if you want. But I've also seen numerous teachers go with Zoom or Google Meet calls, and they do a workout all there together. So you can do it totally individual. They can just kind of record their attendance, or you could actually set it in your time of what your class would be, and you can do an actual Zoom or Google Meet time. So
nice. I do want to circle back on a question that David, and I saw you had another one, David, but I'm going to touch on your first one too. Great idea with the women's fitness class. How can this be implemented with no females in the department? So there's that question, Molly. I don't know if you have any ideas on that. And then there was another one about kind of the flipping the script. A lot of the boys not necessarily doing some of the Zoom yoga. How do you kind of, because you've talked about that as well. So if you want to touch on both of those kind of around the women's fitness class and some of the struggles, that I think that would be great.
Yes, I've actually been getting a lot of questions after these webinars about women's fitness. So if you guys have more questions and I don't answer it, feel free to email me. I'm still answering emails back. I haven't forgot about people. But yes, so I think it could be implemented with a male. I think it would just be harder for them to open up as much, but I think putting them into a setting where everything is females student-wise is you're already like going above and beyond what they've ever had before. So I think it would be a good thing to try and implement, of having them in an all-female class with a male teacher. Why not give it a shot? You can get their feedback and see how they like it. And then in terms of having males do the yoga and dance, and absolutely I do have them do it. It is the best thing in the world. But just as I take the women and I ease them into more of the strength training by way of yoga, dance, Pilates, things like that, I take the males now and reverse it. So I will take them in their normal habitat of strength training and, you know, want to be big, and I'll start to implement the yoga, Pilates, boom, dance. And it's the best thing in the world. Every year we do a full dance day. One of my greatest mentors in the world, Heather Winia, comes in to do what's called groove method with them. Everyone loves it. I think I've only had, like, out of 6 years teaching at Penfield, a total of 4 kids who haven't wanted to participate whatsoever. And it is the greatest thing in the world. So yes, I just kind of flipped the role. And I did write an article about it. I think I did it in the women's fitness article I did.
Yep.
And I can share that with anyone, or you can find it right on Platform's website under blog, and phys ed, I think, is the tab for it. So. Yep.
Karen's got a good idea just to throw out there for those that might not be following along in the chat, of saying, putting photos up of male athletes on the wall of the gym doing yoga. It's a great motivator as well, just having people see kind of those other things. So Karen, appreciate that comment. That's great.
And also too, if the word yoga kind of freaks you out, as it does some of my students, we talk about mobility first, mobility and stretching, and we actually use platforms, Mastering Mobility, 20-minute sessions, and we do it every Friday. So every single Friday throughout the school year, my students are doing mobility. And then once they get comfortable with it, then I will transition them into traditional yoga.
Yep.
After every mobility session, whether it's platform or not, we always go into Stavasana and lay in stillness, and they love it. And they just call it their sleeping time, but as long as they're doing it, I'm happy. So
Nice. All right, awesome. Another good question. If we're required to conduct PE online next school year, what are your tips to hold students accountable and keep them engaged while still considering the equity and diversity among students? And I think probably to just expand on that, not everyone has access to internet, or maybe there's one computer at home and they have to share it throughout the day. So I think right off the bat, I'll let Molly, you touch on this, just probably the ideas of making it available to them and letting them get it done on their own time, rather than saying you have to be here at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, like we've seen a lot of schools do. Molly, do you want to kind of jump in there as well for other ideas on that as well?
Yeah, and going right off of it, I mean, if we're required to go online again next school year, we have to consider the number one fact that their parents are most likely still having to work as well. So you might be coming into a class, a student now who has to be the caretaker for their younger siblings or whatever it may be. So their life is going to change if this does have to happen this way. So requiring them to do certain work at certain time is probably not the most ideal thing. So maybe making it, hey, by the end of the week, I want you to have, 3 or 4 workouts done, and I don't know, maybe a journal. And this is totally off the top of my head, but I think just making things more of, like I said, the simple and quick, so that it's something maybe they can do with their siblings, not making it so intense that they need certain equipment, things like that. Maybe it's simply just taking a walk with their family and they're talking about a topic that you give them. I think that would be a really good way. And I wrote an article called Mindfulness, and that gives a lot of really good tips that you could have them be doing that are still health and fitness related, but they are not that typical PE classroom setting. So talking about cleaning or listening to a podcast or taking their dog for a walk, just getting outside for a little bit. Very simple things, but there's no technology really required, depending on if you want them to listen to podcasts or not, or whatever it may be, but it's very simple. And I think we have to keep in mind, because I don't have internet at my house. That's why I'm here. So I'm right. One of those special people that
That's right. And I think to that point too, Molly, and I see a few other people kind of like jumping in and having a few good ideas is, like you said, while our goal is to be able to provide the structure and the opportunities, encouraging that other stuff is awesome as well. It doesn't have to always be this one size fits all opportunity, but getting them into other stuff. I think that's a great point.
Yes.
All right. I have a few more questions. Let me just make sure we chunk these out, and then we'll wrap up around 2.
I am seeing a lot on just direct questions of platforms. If you guys want to email me, I can answer as many questions like how did I get the district to help pay for it, things like that. And then if you want to do a demo, I'm more than happy to help set up a demo for you.
Awesome. And another question, I think in that same vein, Molly, in terms of getting it connected, I've seen a lot of questions about Google and getting it connected to Google. I just dropped something in the page as well about getting people out via Google. So if you want to check out that webinar, that was from another teacher in California who shared on that. Choice boards seem to be hot topics. Do you have sample choice boards you might use? Do you know what that is, Molly?
I guess I haven't heard that term.
Like I think a bingo board or things like that.
Different.
Yeah. So, all right.
Are you talking like maybe you can do like option A, option B, option B? Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes. I do that within my class all the time. And the kids will vote what workout they're going to do. And in particular, if we're talking about platform, I don't give a certain order that the students have to do their platform workouts in. So if they're sore for their legs, they don't want to do legs on Monday, they're going to jump to, their upper body primarily, which is their Thursday workout. That's fine. I'm not picky about that as long as they are getting better each day and staying active. So
awesome. Well, I think we've kind of navigated a bunch of the different questions that people have, and I know I probably missed one or two, so my apologies if we didn't necessarily touch on all of them. I see a few questions about an exit ticket to verify. We do have that. Molly made that herself. So we're gonna send that out along with a presentation and the slides, so people have access to all three things. So please feel free to check this out, share it with your colleagues if they're interested. Please feel free to click around some of the links that are embedded within Molly's slides that she's done. And then we'll also get you that certificate as well, if your school or state will kind of honor that and represent it. Let's finish with this. I appreciate everybody for sending their thanks. This was just the start of a conversation. I think that what we're really aiming to do is continue to have webinars. So if you have ideas or you want to hear Molly or other teachers kind of present on things to start a larger conversation for phys ed, please reach out to us. Please ask us. We are more than happy to touch on different things along the way. So thank you so much for everyone for joining us. Molly, you got anything else to add before we sign off here?
No, but please, I am more than happy to answer any questions you guys have. Go follow me on Instagram. Go ahead and shoot me an email with any questions. My website has my email linked right in. So go ahead. I love discussion. Platform has given me literally a platform to have these kinds of discussions and with other professionals. So I thoroughly enjoy it.
For sure. And I've seen a few questions asking about more webinars. We'll keep everybody up to date as more things come out. They're going to be, as specific and as general and diving around all different types of topics. We know that a lot of our coaches and teachers wear many hats and have many different things they have to juggle, like Molly does, like we all do. Totally understand that as well. So we'll have tons of ways that you can keep in touch, tons of ways you can keep contact with us. And, with that, we are going to go ahead and sign off. You can look for an email from myself or Molly in the next hour or so with all the information. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.